Welcome to the Investor Success Podcast today. My name is Jim Ingersoll, and I'm your host for this podcast. Welcome back to all the loyal Success listeners out there. It's nice to see you again and hang out and talk about real estate investing. We've got an amazing show today lined up for you. We're going to talk a lot about investing in mobile homes and cash flow and investing for the long term. So welcome to Investor Success, Rachel Hernandez.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
And Rachel has been investing for over a decade already. I've known her a good long time, and she's got a vast experience. She started off actually as a landlord before taking some specific steps to really niching down into mobile home investing. You can follow what she does at adventuresinmobilehomes.com. It's a really awesome blog where Rachel shares her stories and all the crazy adventures she runs into investing in mobile homes. And one of the things I love about Rachel's approach is she loves to keep it simple, KIS. Rachel has also authored 3 different books on investing. Each of them can be found on Amazon. Each of them starts with the title, Real Estate Investing Sucks. So we'll talk more about your titles there in a little bit, Rachel. Thanks for joining me today on the Investor Success Podcast.
Nice to be talking with you, Jim.
So you spent a long time as a landlord in traditional landlord approach, and then you switched over to mobile home investing. And as markets get tougher, and you're in Austin, right?
San Antonio area. San Antonio.
Okay,
the whole
San Antonio.
Area. Yeah.
Same thing, though. I mean, your market there in San Antonio is pretty strong on the retail side, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, and I mean, it basically is. I mean, there's definitely a lot of job growth and, you know, people coming in and out. And
right.
Texas as a whole is very business friendly. So there's a lot of businesses, and when there's a lot of businesses and there's a lot of people coming in, so.
Yes. And so what that means is
market.
that it's getting harder and harder to find really great single-family home deals, which is one of the reasons people may want to follow your path, which is migrating from single-family homes into mobile homes.
Yeah, I mean, with single-family homes, there's just a lot of people in the business, and it's great for people to start off with. Mobile homes is more something, and I find that a lot of investors who get into mobile homes, they've actually had experience in other parts of real estate investing. So single-family homes is great as a starting point to get the experience, to get your feet wet. But mobile homes is like anything else. It's a niche in itself, and so it's definitely something that if someone wants to be it's something of a less competitive market. It's definitely something worthwhile. It's one of those things where if you're in, and so it's very rewarding.
So what led you to make, because our listeners may be wondering, well, why would I want to go from single-family homes to a different asset class like mobile homes? But, you know, beyond just the market getting really competitive and it's getting harder and harder to find those single-family home deals, what sort of was your basis for doing that? Because you spent several years as a traditional landlord before taking that leap. How did that work for you?
Yeah, well, basically, I basically started first as a bird dog, then a wholesaler, finding deals for other investors, which is great. I got that experience. I have a sales background, so it kind of came easy to me finding sellers and buyers and putting people together. But after a while, you know, I started buying and holding properties on the single-family homes, and what I found was it's kind of stressful buying a single-family home and having it vacant and needing it filled, and you've got that big mortgage on top. And also, there is a lot of competition to find these properties. You really got to get, you know, in the field. I mean, there is the MLS, but hey, everyone has access
those
to
deals
it.
are drying up. It's hard to find them on the MLS now.
Exactly. And even if you don't have access, you can get an agent who can just hop on the MLS. So that was one of the things where it was getting harder and harder to find deals. So at the point when I decided to just go into something else, which was mobile homes, I decided to just cash out on the entire real estate portfolio and just paved the way for mobile home investing. It was a bumpy ride. I mean, it wasn't easy, but I'm glad I pursued it. I mean, it was a lot of work. So because the information is not there as single-family homes, there's a lot of information on investing in single-family homes.
And that's one of the things you're really good at providing through your writing. You're a very great writer, and people can check that out at adventuresinmobilehomes.com. So what is the missing link? If somebody's thinking about doing this, what are the first things they've got to learn?
Sure. Well, I mean, I know it's generic, but I always tell people, you got to figure out your why. Why are you doing this? You've got to assess, and these are a lot of personal development. I know it sounds hokey, but what your skills are. And a book I always recommend is called What Color is Your Parachute? To kind of know what kind of person are you? Are you an outgoing person? Are you introverted? Are you extroverted? And once you really know what kind of person you are, you can build your business around yourself. Unfortunately, a lot of new investors or people getting in the market, they try to build themselves around the business. Just because Rachel's doing her marketing this way, I'm going to do it, but that's not my personality type. And then they struggle, and then a lot of people quit, and then they think, well, I'll do something else. The first thing to do is kind of assess your personality type, and then go from there, build your team. If you're not an extrovert, if you're not good with talking with people, maybe find out different marketing methods such as direct mail or other types of marketing methods to get in touch with people versus just trying to call them on the phone or knock on their door. So that would probably be my first step.
Okay, so find your why. I love the way you said find your why and build your business around yourself. That's great. And let me ask you this. If somebody's going to go out and start going into the mobile home deals, how do you market to them? Do you start by building that relationship with the park manager? How do you identify what park you want to go into? And how does a mobile home deal in a park actually work? I guess that's a couple questions. Sorry.
Yeah, sure. No problem. I get these questions all the time. But the first step is, yes, if you're going to work in someone else's community, you need to know who you're dealing with. And that's not just for their end, the community manager and the owner, but it's also for you too. Because what I learned in sales, when I was in sales, is when I was a salesperson, you kind of get to know your prospect, and you both are interviewing each other. It's not just your prospect is interviewing you. You should be interviewing your prospect to see, do I even want to work with this person? Right. So the first step I would do, and this is what it's a little overwhelming, but what I did was I visited all the parks in my area as much as I could.
Wow.
And so I went to Lowend parks, I went to Highend parks, I went to Miller Road Park, and I just went in, looked at the park, see, do I want to work in this park? And if it was a park that I wanted to work in, I'd go in and talk to the park manager and build the relationship from there. Obviously, it's not going to happen overnight, the relationship. It does take time. So it's just kind of a constant, do I want to work in this park? And if I do, keep going and keep building the relationship. Give them a reason to work with you. Either they like you or you can bring in something to the table. You can help them get a better prospective residents into the park. So it has to be a win-win situation for both you and the park as well, too.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so if somebody's a little nervous about what do you say and how do you build rapport with a park manager, what are some easy ways you can start to break down those barriers and that awkwardness?
Sure, no problem, Jim. Well, it's pretty easy. A lot of people think, I need to bring a list of questions. And the way I approach it and the way I've always approached it is just do what a prospective resident would do. Come in, and you got to, now I'm not saying say I'm a prospective resident. I'm just saying you got to get yourself in the mindset okay, if I want to live in this park, what kind of questions should I ask? Okay, now you don't go into the park and say, I'm an investor and I can bring you deals or whatnot. Basically, the approach I take, and it's in my book, my whole script, is, hey, I was just driving by the park and I just wanted to stop by and get some more information, and that's it. And if you want to talk more, just stop yourself. Because the park manager will tell you everything that you need to know as long as you stop talking.
As long as you what?
As long as you stop talking. Because a lot of investors, they take their approach as like, well, I want control and I want to be in control and I want to direct the conversation. But then the manager,
when I'm doing it, when I'm talking to people, if I'm talking to somebody about buying their house or mobile home, I like to get them to tell me all the information. So I like to listen. And I use this little thing called mirroring, whereas if they're not telling me enough information, I just basically repeat their last 3 or 4 words, and then they just keep on going. Have you ever tried something like that?
Yes,
it works really well.
Exactly.
Yeah, it works very, very well.
Because it's kind of a reminder to them. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, you just repeat their last 3 or 4 words, and they'll just keep going. And they'll tell you if you're in a park, and I've bought mobiles in parks before too, Rachel, but they'll tell you, like, which people are in trouble, which people are moving in and out, which houses need to go. I mean, they'll give you a lot of information on the culture of that park, I think. Don't you agree?
Oh, yeah. You wouldn't believe what kind of information they'll give you as long as they can trust you. And most people, and I don't want to, I know you've got a lot of people listening who are investors and like to call themselves investors. I don't even call myself an investor. And they don't even see me as an investor. And you got to take the approach as you're not an investor. You're just kind of want to know information about the park. That's basically how I do it. And you're just there for information. It's like you're a researcher, so.
I like that. I like the
approach.
Concept of being a researcher, Rachel. I think that's good. So what does it take to put together a deal in a mobile home park? What are the components of a good deal, and what do you do with it once you find it?
Sure. Well, I mean, the first thing you want to do is kind of assess. It goes back to, again, what kind of person you are. Do you want a deal where it's just cosmetic work, kind of paint and carpet, and that's basically it? Or are you willing to do kind of a rehab, tear out cabinets or whatnot? How much work do you want to do on a property? Even if you're not doing the work yourself, you got to kind of assess, am I willing to, hire contractors and manage them and how much time? Or do I want a turnkey property and just buy from another investor who puts everything together and it's all ready to go? So that's the first kind of step.
So what are the financial numbers you're looking for? I mean, how cheap do you try to buy these things in parks, Rachel? Which ones seem to work the best for you?
Well, my first deal, and I think I told you this, it was below $5,000.
Yeah.
And that's a traditional Lonnie deal. Lonnie is the grandfather of mobile home investing. He has a great book, Deals on Wheels, that I learned about.
Deals on Wheels is a fabulous book. I agree. And Lonnie is no longer with us, but boy, he really contributed heavily in this area. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yes, exactly. And he had a big influence on me, and I met him and his wife, and they're great. And he became kind of a mentor to me. But regarding the first deal, yeah, it was kind of like a Lonnie deal. I didn't do much to the house. I think I actually had the seller, the wife, she actually cleaned it out for me. But that was a traditional Lonnie deal. I bought that under $5,000. I got $1,000 as a move-in, and then they paid $250 to me for 4.5 years. And that was a great deal. But then after that, I kind of got into bigger homes. And that was only a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, so it was a smaller home. Where I lucked out was it was in a really nice park, so there was a lot of demand. But after that, I actually started buying homes for more money, and I found that for me personally, my background is I grew up in like the suburbs, so I'm really used to kind of like a more upscale clientele. Versus I know the low end. There's a lot of investors that's their bread and butter, but I'm kind of more used to like more of an upscale clientele. So I bought homes for more money, and all I had to do, usually it just has cosmetic issues like paint and carpet. Sometimes we did have to put some Freon into the air conditioning, but other than that, most times people took care of the homes. So I found that I was buying homes for more money and putting less work into it, and then they were feeling pretty good with better clientele that I'd want to work with.
Were you renting them or selling them back? Do you like to sell them on a note, or do you just rent them out?
I actually give people the option. I do a lease with an option to purchase, because a lot of people, are looking, they're like, well, I do want to buy, but I don't want to get tied down to something because I might have an emergency in the family, or I might have to move because of work or whatnot. So what I found was people liked having that option. You're leasing, but then you have the option to purchase, so that it's not all going to rent or whatnot. You know what I mean? And then I have no option to purchase a house. So that's kind of been the model that I'm actually following, and people like it because they're not tied in. It's kind of like an in-between, you know. I'm not actually buying the house, but I'm not renting the house. So
gotcha.
So
what's the price point of a typical deal you might buy today?
For me, I typically like to purchase, obviously the lower the better, but for me, I look at the community first. So if it's in a great community, for me, I buy anywhere between $10,000 up to $15,000 cash. I buy them all in cash for these homes, and usually there's some paint or carpet that may need to be. If the carpet's still good, then I'll get them steam cleaned. Sometimes if they haven't changed the carpet like it's original, then I'll get new carpet or whatnot. But for the most part, those homes are like between 16 and 80 feet long. So they're the biggest on the single wide side. And I cater to families. So, and a lot of people, the more room, the better. So that's kind of my niche.
And then what do you do with that on the back end? Like, what do you typically get for an option deposit, and what are you able to rent those for?
Yeah, I pretty much get like 10% of the purchase price of the option of it. So, say something is selling for like $20,000. Well, let's just make it simple. They have an option to purchase it for that much. Then the 10% would be of that.
So if you buy it for $10,000, you resell. You basically do an option agreement at $20,000. You double it, and then you get 10% down. And then how much cash flow are you able to create on a monthly deal like this?
Yeah, at
with
this
the rent
point,
payment.
the cash, with the rent payment, I'm getting $500 and more in cash flow.
Okay.
And
really
that
good.
covers taxes and insurance or whatnot. At least that's my minimum, $500. So basically on each deal. So it's
you'll pay
you're putting in more money.
Yes, it is, but you're basically buying. You're buying for like $10,000 to $15,000. You basically double your price. You get a 10% option payment, which basically should cover your rehab, and then you make $500 a month as long as they're in there. That's a solid cash flow deal.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for people just starting out and they don't have money, I would say build up your cash until you find what kind of person you are, because the last thing you want to do is get into a deal where I can't do this. And then people get turned off because they go after the low end, which is cheap, but then they find out, you know what, there's either too much rehab, I don't want to deal with this clientele or whatever, and then they get turned off by the whole business and do something else. So that's kind of why.
So let me tell you about my first mobile home deal. My first mobile home deal was also in a park. This was a long, like 10 years ago, so it was a long time ago, but I think we paid, say, $3,000 for the thing. So all the numbers looked really good on paper, right? And it was a single wide. and highly motivated seller. I think I found it on Craigslist or whatever. Or from the park manager, may have given us a lead. I can't recall. And so we bought it for $3,000, and we ended up selling it on a note. But in between that, we went in. We knew it was going to need some work, Rachel, but it needed a lot more work than we thought. We weren't used to working on mobile homes either, which are a little bit different than single families. But the worst part for us was we got in there, and it was absolutely, totally infested with fleas. And I hate fleas. I think I hate fleas worse than snakes, and I hate snakes. So anyway, we all go in there. It was my wife, Cheryl, and I had a really good friend from Brazil. His name was Roberto Pena, was working with us then. And we all go in there, and then another guy named Daniel. And we all go in there to start working on this thing. All of a sudden, our socks start turning black. You know what I mean? From all the fleas.
Oh, wow.
we go
goodness.
running out of that thing as fast as we can. And I remember Roberto, who was working with me, he almost starts stripping. Like first his shoes come off, then his socks come off. Then he's like throwing his shoes in a trash can. He's like, I can't deal with fleas. And from there, everything went fine. But to this day, I mean, we have so many laughs about that first mobile home, and there's more than that. There was like a neighbor next door who was in a mobile home park, and she kept like going out to sunbathe, and all my contractors were laughing. And there was so many like little funny stories along the way. But we ended up taking that. We did do a Lonnie deal on it, so we sold it on a note, and we probably got say $2,000 down and probably 10 or 12% interest. And that went along really well for maybe about a year, Rachel. And then all of a sudden, the payments stopped coming in. So we're like, oh my gosh, what do we do? We had to try to remember where the mobile home was in the park because we couldn't even remember. So we found the lot number and we searched it. We knocked on the door and his wife answered. We said, you guys have paid on the 1st all this time, and all of a sudden we didn't get a payment. She's like, my husband went to jail.
Oh,
this
my
is my
goodness.
adventure in mobile home, right? So I'm like,
Right,
you're going to have to move.
Exactly.
So she moved out pretty quickly. Fortunately, we didn't have to evict her or anything. She agreed to move because her husband was, in the jail anyways. And so I ended up, after that, we just sold it outright, and we ended up, I don't remember what we sold it for, maybe $5,000 or $6,000. So that's my personal first, and I did a couple after that, but that was my very first adventure in mobile home investing.
Wow.
It all turned out fine, but to this day, when I see these guys, we all start laughing about the fleas because the one guy, he was ready to light his socks on fire. He's like, I don't want these things. I'm going to light them up, give me some fuel. I don't like
my
fleas,
goodness.
but this thing was infested bad. So we got rid of the fleas. We rented it out. The guy stopped paying us. We got rid of it and we sold it. And everything's pretty forgiving if you're into it, everything at the right price. I guess that's the moral of my story. And that's a good one. So that's why I was asking about your numbers. Your numbers look really good to me, Rachel, because you're basically, if somebody exercises their option, you've got it marked up twice what you paid. Plus you're generating $500 a month cash flow. I mean, if you had 10 of those, it would be $60,000 a year. And 10 of them is pretty easy to manage, I would imagine. It's a part-time job.
Yeah, as long as they, the communication is there. Because I think I told you, Tim, I had some people, they skipped out on me recently.
I know.
Yeah, the manager called me, and I'm trying to get out of here for Christmas vacation. And they just skipped out, left a bunch of stuff, and there's bed bugs in the house, and I'm like, oh my goodness.
So bed bugs might be worse than fleas.
Yeah, I've done some research on it. It's not as bad as people think it is because they need a host to feed on. So if there's no one in there, they're not gonna be able to survive. But make a long story short, they paid me for 5 years. Over $500 a month for 5 years. Skipped out.
Oh, good.
Nothing. No phone call. Nothing in writing. Nothing. Just skipped out and left the house a mess. It's in a great park. That's a good thing. It's in a great park, Highend Park, and it's a 4-bedroom, so it's a big house. So it's just a matter of it's another home to fix up.
I hear you. You can rinse and
like
repeat and redo the deal. You'll collect another option deposit, 10%, and you'll get another tenant in there. and hopefully they'll pay you another 5 years.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm hanging in there, but Ronnie is right. Sometimes you will have to take some homes back, and
Right.
the more I get into this, the more I'm feeling it's more management. That's what it is. In the beginning, if you have like say 5 or less homes, it's like, oh great, everyone's paying, whatnot. But then once you get 10, 15, 20, 25, you're like, oh my God, it's more to manage, and it's just being able to handle those stresses. But I guess everyone has to start somewhere.
Yeah, you do, and it's all about getting your systems down. But, you know, I told you my story. We had to take ours back because all of a sudden our payments stopped coming in. And I knock on the door, and the wife's like, he's in the clinker, you know. He's locked up. I'm like, okay, here we go.
Oh,
so
man.
It's always an adventure out there, right?
Yeah, exactly. Wow, I didn't know that, Jim.
So to you started the process saying it's really important you get into the right park, and that's, I think, a good thing. You want to be a place where families want to live, and is that a really important component? Is that why you went out and visited every park in San Antonio to decide where you wanted to do business?
Well, for me, it really is a matter of I need to know who I am, okay? You can make money in different types of parks. You can be successful in a low-end park, a middle-of-the-road park, or a high-end park. The question is, can you deal with it, like your personality? Like for me, I would not, for me in a low-end park, I cannot be there at night. In a higher-end park, I know that they have a courtesy patrol. I know they have neighborhood watch. I know they have those kinds of things. I'm not saying one is good or bad. I just saying one is better for me and my personality type than the other. And that's the kind of thing that, you know, people have to assess. It's always the neighborhood. I know it's cliche, but real estate, it is location.
I've always said my litmus test for neighborhood, whether it's a single-family home or a mobile home or a townhome or whatever, it doesn't really matter, is would I send my teenage daughter in at night to collect rent? Or my wife, and the answer to that is no, then I probably don't want to do business there.
Yeah, exactly.
I've been, over the last 10 years, I've become a lot pickier on where I want to invest.
Yeah, me too.
I just don't want to feel threatened. I want to be in areas that are growing and thriving. Now, I'll take, you know, revitalization and gentrification are important, but if I don't feel there is some quick turn revitalization or gentrification or something's going to change, I'm probably going to pop out of there.
Exactly.
So
that's
you've written
me.
Now you've also you've got a free gift for our listeners. It's in the show notes today. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I offer a free book. It's called 10 Do's and Don'ts to Get Started in Mobile Home Investing. If anyone is interested, and you can find it at adventuresinmobilehomes.com/free. And it's basically a guide for anyone who actually wants to start doing this, kind of some steps. That's why it's 10 do's and don'ts of what you can do to get started in mobile home investing, and it's free.
Okay. What a nice gift. That's in the show notes as well. Now, you've got 3 books on Amazon that are all really kicking butt. I mean, they're doing really well, and all 3 of them start with the title Real Estate Investing Sucks. One is Finding Your Niche, one is on contractors, and one is on dealing with change. You want to talk about your series you got going here?
Sure. Now, this series came after my first book, which is called Adventures in Mobile Homes, and you can find that on Amazon. Surprise, surprise. But my passion with my writing is really to kind of outline a lot of investors out there. They think real estate is kind of, you know, a rosy picture, that everything goes as planned. And I think what it is there's a lot of people out there, they're taking advice from gurus, and gurus make it seem like it's simple. You know, it's really easy to get into. All you have to do is this and that and follow my system and buy this course or whatnot. But it's really not like that. Just like any other business, there's change in real estate, and to be successful, you've got to go along with the change. So the first book was Real Estate Investing Sucks, How to Find Success as a Real Estate Investor, and basically that kind of outlines the kinds of changes that I went through regarding each topic in the book. So like management changes with partnerships that I went through, changes in my own personal life. And that book is the first book in the series, in the Real Estate Investing Sucks series. After that is Real Estate Investing Sucks, How to Find and Hire Contractors the Right Way. And it's kind of, about my experience and how people can learn to hire contractors, because let's face it, there's not a lot of information out there.
No, it's a critical piece.
Exactly. And the book really shows you what you need to do when you're looking for contractors to hire, because for me in the beginning, I did all the work, but then after a while, once you acquire a lot of more properties, you can't do work on every single home. So my job really now is not just finding deals, but learning how to hire people. And I find that a lot of investors, they just kind of go with the first person or a referral or whatnot. But even if you find someone that's good, that person may not be there for the long term, and then you have to start the process again. So basically the book kind of shows you how to keep that funnel of contractors going and when you're doing your real estate investing. So that's the second book. And then the third book is called Real Estate Investing Sucks, How to Find Your Niche and Dominate. And this book is really about how do you get started as a real estate investor? There's so many different niches. There's, wholesaling, lease options, mobile homes, whatnot. And that book is really for the beginner investor, like, where do I start?
Right.
There's so many people out there selling courses and books. It's like, just try my system, you'll be great or whatnot.
Yeah.
Before people even assess what kind of person am I and do I really want to do this? There's options. So it kind of goes over what options are out there when people are actually starting out. So that's the third book in the series.
Great. And I think that's important because you hear, subject to and self-directed IRAs and rehabbing and flipping and notes and mobile homes, single-family homes, condos, multifamily. There's so much stuff and so much information. You don't need to do all that stuff. Figure out whether you need money today, money for the future, cash flow, profit, and just start building it out and keep it simple. I think that's great.
Exactly.
Well, that's about all the time we have today, Rachel, but I really appreciate your being on with me.
Oh, no problem, Jim. I really enjoyed it. And I wanted to, note for all your audiences, I have a free private Facebook group on Facebook. If anyone has any questions about mobile homes, it's called Mobile Home Investors. And basically, it's just a place to network with other investors who are interested in the same topic of mobile homes and ask questions. And I'm always there to answer questions.
And I'm a member there as well. And so I do highly recommend that. I think it's a great way to go. So make sure you pick up the free gift Rachel gave you. Check out her books and go to her Facebook page. And I would really appreciate it. Thanks again for all of our loyal Investor Success listeners. We really appreciate you guys. If you got 45 seconds, leave me a review on iHeartRadio, Stitcher, YouTube, or iTunes, wherever you're watching this. I really appreciate it. Share this episode as well, because we talked a lot about doing due diligence, building trust, components of a deal, exit strategies, price points, covered a lot of stuff on mobile home investing over the last 30 minutes. And make sure you get out there and check out my free gift I've got for you as well. Lots of freebies today. Investors love freebies, don't they, Rachel?
Oh, yes, all the time.
Just go to bigmoneyinvestor.com/free gift and pick that one up as well. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in, and I hope you have a fantastic and amazing day getting out there and doing some awesome deals.